Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. Won't cost you if you'd like to make a call to us. And Leanne is producing. We're coming to you live from our studio on Pearse Street in Nenagh this morning, and it's always great to be back here in Nenagh. Coming up on the show, Ireland's declining birth rates. We'll discuss that in just a few moments' time. Cllr John O'Heney will be with us discussing the frustrations around water outages in the Tipperary town area. Should the Taoiseach go to Washington for St. Patrick's Day? Well, I'll chat to Fionnan Sheehan from the Indo on that. Why are workers key to retail success? And Ali heads to Mo Chara Animal Rescue Shop in Cashel. So all of that and much, much more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tippfm.com. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. The Irish Times, and my favourite photograph of the day is dominating the front page of the Irish Times. It's that of Michael Flatley winking at the camera as he makes his way into court in Belfast. But the piece tells us that Michael Flatley has been living the lifestyle of a Monaco millionaire without the funds to do so, and he borrowed $75,000 to pay for his own birthday party, the High Court in Belfast heard yesterday. Also on the Times today, and right across the newspaper, stories of the flooding, and the piece on the front of the Times telling us that communities in the south and east already hit by heavy flooding are bracing for more heavy rain over the coming days. Interesting one as well on the Times today. Fáilte Ireland, the state tourism body, spent €60,000 on alcohol at 2 trade fairs and $351,000 on food as part of a marketing drive to woo international visitors to Ireland. I guess that would do it all right. To the Irish Independent and their lead story, a fresh row has broken out between the residents of Dublin's Dartmouth Square and Transport Infrastructure Ireland following comments made by the Metrolink director Sean Sweeney, who's been accused of revealing details of a confidential deal to buy properties there for more than €30 million. To the Irish Examiner, and their lead story, a rather worrying one indeed, a sexual abuse treatment service for young children has been inundated with new referrals, including an unprecedented surge in cases involving harmful sexual behaviour among children. Also, if you have health insurance, you'll be disturbed to hear that the VHI unveils its third price hike to plans in a year. And also on the Examiner today, just 7% of post-primary schools have opened the number of special classes targeted by the Department of Education, and more than a third have yet to open any at all. And finally, let's have a look at the Irish Daily Mail. And it's a story of Donald Trump. Once again, Donald Trump issued a chilling threat to Iran last night to make a nuclear deal or face an overwhelming military onslaught. So that's a look at what's making headlines today. If you want to make comment on any of that, we'd be glad to hear from you. And once again, the text WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Now, a new paper from the Iona Institute on the wrong course, birth, marriage and family trends in Ireland found that the marriage rate fell from 5.2 per thousand adults in 2004 to 3.8 in 2024. In 2023, the EU average was 4.0. Now, Breda O'Brien from the Iona Institute joins me now. Good morning to you, Breda.
Good morning, Fran.
And
thank you so much for having me.
Well, many thanks indeed for joining us this morning. The fact that our marriage rate and fertility rates are now at the lowest levels, you're saying it ought to ring some alarm bells. But is it ringing alarm bells, Breda?
It's starting to ring alarm bells. Everyone from the GAA, who actually now have a demographics committee, to the National Economic and Social Council, are actually saying we have a crisis here. We have We've been pointing out this for years in the Ione Institute, the way the trends are going, but it's definitely, I think, there is now an increasing awareness. But I suppose it's kind of disguised by the fact that our population is still rising and will continue to rise for a number of years. But in fact, the figures are very, very stark. If you look at the age that people are getting married at now, and fertility rates are do still follow marriage rates, even though we obviously know that people are having lots of children outside of marriage. The average age for a guy is nearly 38, and the average age for a woman is nearly 36. And the age of first-time mothers has actually, the average age is now 33. And this has lots of implications, including for people dying to be grandparents.
And some might say the decrease in birth rates, and you alluded to it there yourself, Breda, it's not a great problem because the population is growing anyway due to emigration and probably because people are living longer as well. So do we need to be concerned about this?
Oh, we absolutely do, for a number of reasons. If we only look at the kind of the raw pragmatic reason of who's going to pay for pensions, the traditional kind of format always was that you had smaller numbers in the older generations and bigger numbers in the younger generations. And so back in the 60s, if you had 100 grandparents, they were going to have 400 grandchildren. It's now dropped dramatically from that. And you're looking at a situation where, 100 people can now expect to have only 100 sets of grandparents can only expect to have 56 grandchildren. So there's the economic issue, there's the whole issue of who's going to pay pensions, but there's also the societal issue of, the lack of relationships like aunts and cousins and grandchildren, and a kind of already carers are stressed. But can you imagine a situation where the younger generation are looking after so many more older people? And there's a human aspect to it as well. All these connections make us who we are.
These are the extended families you're talking to that we've all relied on so much, I suppose, over the years. Playing into our conversation will be that news that dropped this morning as well, Breda. Primary school enrolment has fallen by almost 6,500 over the past year. 11 primary schools closed permanently since last June due to low enrolment, making them unviable. So it's going to affect, I suppose, the already declining rural Ireland.
Absolutely it is. And it's already affecting rural Ireland, and that's why the GAA are worried about it. They can't field teams in rural Ireland, and there's an imbalance that they can't field teams because there are too many people in the urban areas. So it's actually a huge issue for rural Ireland and for isolation and we know the reasons, though, Fran, that they're manifold, but housing is top of them.
Yes.
And the high rates of emigration that we have, once again, that people are leaving because they can't see themselves ever getting a house, or they can't see themselves getting a steady job, or the working conditions are better in other countries. These are all really worrying trends, and basically what they mean is that rural areas are increasingly experiencing depopulation, so they're losing their post offices, they're losing their pubs, they're losing the kind of social infrastructure that we all rely on.
The rise in the numbers as well, I was looking at some of the charts that you published in divorce, separation and indeed lone parenthood as well. Might surprise people, the rate of the increase there?
Yeah, I think so, because if you just take divorce, and we know that divorce is a tragedy for many families, and nobody grows up saying, "I hope I'm divorced when I'm older." But if you look at the overall rates of divorce, they look fairly okay. They're even low by European standards. But if you actually look at a thing called the ratio between new marriages and divorce, it looks very different. So for every 4 new marriages, and we know those are falling, there's one divorce application. And that's not great news, really. And And in terms of people living together, we know it's very, very common, but the fact remains that it's still less stable, and people are all, even though they do have children when they're living together, they tend to have fewer of them. So these are all kind of interlinked things that you have to kind of pull back a bit to see the big picture. And you mentioned immigration. Now, there's, given that there's a lot of anti-immigrant feeling in the country, we're looking at a situation where countries might be competing for immigrants, which sounds crazy now, because this is a worldwide phenomenon.
Is that because of the demographic that will be left to us? Is that what you mean?
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. In order to kind of maintain,
Are we not already seeing that, in fact, here in terms of certain jobs, certain demographics of jobs that we need people to come in and fill?
Absolutely, and we have a hugely high dependency on people coming in to fill them. But the point that I'm making is that even in some of the countries which are hugely populous, like India, they're experiencing a birth decline as well. One person who's an expert in this said India is in the very difficult situation of seeing its rate of births decline before it became rich enough to sustain the large numbers of older people that are going to result. So there's probably going to be a situation within maybe 20 years where there are fewer immigrants to plug those gaps in the areas that we so desperately need them.
Now, I know your own organisation, the Iona Institute, you promote the place of marriage and religion in society, and I'm just wondering about the religious aspect of what's happening then as well. More and more people, I suppose, turning away from the churches and their own religion. Is that playing into this in some way as well, particularly where marriage is concerned?
Oh, it definitely is, Fran. I mean, it's actually very striking. No less an institution than the Financial Times pointed out that religious people are still getting married younger and still having more children,
yes,
despite all the difficulties that they're facing. But a decline in religion means then for most of the population that is not actually happening. And the Iona Institute actually published a paper specifically about the change in marriage, and that people are opting more and more for secular or for kind of spiritual but not religious kind of marriage ceremonies. But the key point is really as people don't find meaning in something beyond themselves and their immediate circles and their immediate needs, that marriage rates tend to decline, which is an interesting one. And, if you're looking at policy, you can't mandate a religious revival in order to reverse this.
Sure, yeah.
But it is something that people don't necessarily think about when they're thinking about this issue.
When you look down the road for me, as you say, I mean, you can't force people to reverse thinking on this. So 10 years down the road, if we were having a similar conversation, what do you think we'd be reflecting on, Breda?
Well, I think one thing that we can do, housing seems to be an intractable problem. Yeah. But, it used to be not so long ago that getting married in your mid-20s was kind of a normal progression. And there's a big script against that now. My daughter happened to be bridesmaid at several weddings over the past couple of years where there were, where the couples were all in their mid-20s, and they had to fend off people saying, oh, you're not too young, do you not think you should travel, do you not think you should, all of these kind of things sort of saying, are you not foolish to be getting married? Whereas they're perfectly capable young people, willing to make sacrifices in order to found a family and all of that good stuff. So maybe we shouldn't drop that kind of narrative from people, and maybe without interfering or being heavy-handed or in any way overly prescriptive, to acknowledge that there are advantages to getting married early, if including that the chances of having children are higher when you get married in your mid-20s, Well,
indeed, because God knows people taking out mortgages when they're shoving towards 40, I suppose. They're talking about paying mortgages now into old age, or what we might have seen in the past as being old age. And that's quite a commitment, isn't it? It's quite a...
It's a massive commitment. Now, I think we are really negligent that we have allowed it to become so difficult that normal rites of passage, if you want to call them that, like, moving out of home, setting up your own family, having your own home, that all of these are being so delayed. And I think we need serious conversations, and that's why, giving this opportunity to chat about this, Fran, is so important, because these conversations matter. They have an impact. And, no trend is irreversible. You can change a culture of script. And, it might be possible in 10 or 20 years to say, oh, it looked like it was, really heading for disaster. But because we made certain policy changes and we changed the way we look at things, we managed to mitigate what was happening.
In terms of conversation, I mean, you mentioned having a conversation about this there. Now, the way things have gone in this country, I mean, if I was to come on here today, or if I was to encourage you to say that marriage is good for children, it's good for people, it might even be good for society, I'm sure there would be a whole cohort of people waiting for us out there to condemn that, even though it might only be providing balance to the conversation, Breda. Do you find that?
It's funny, you absolutely do, and people get very irate, and understandably so, if they feel they're being judged for their individual choices. But I actually think that is softening a little bit for one reason, which is that people are seeing themselves that it's harder to find a permanent partner. It's harder to establish a family. And so, in a sense, obviously no one is standing in judgment on anyone's choices. And sometimes living on your own is not a choice. Maybe you just didn't find the right person or so on. But the fact is that all these choices add up to a bigger picture. And that bigger picture is not looking terribly rosy at the moment. So it's not about judging individuals or putting pressure on individuals, but it's saying, look, is this really as a society where we want to be going? Is this really, are these happy trends? Are these helping people to flourish? And I do think that even in the last 4 or 5 years, there's people are less aggressive about this issue, and I think that's good.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting conversation. If people want access to the information that we're talking about here and those trends and that particular report, how can they get hold of that, Breda?
If they just pop into a search engine, Ione Institute, followed by On the Wrong Course, it should bring them to a link. It can be downloaded for free from the Ione Institute website.
All right, really good to talk to you today, Breda. Thank you and good morning to you.
Thank you so much,
Breda O'Brien speaking to us there from the Ione Institute. What do you think about that? What do you think about that conversation? We'd love to hear from you. 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back. I was just speaking to Breda O'Brien there just before the break about the drop in birth rates. One of our listeners on to say it's pretty simple, Fran. We can't afford to have children. Women used to be able to stay at home. Now we have to work to keep the bills paid, and the cost of living is absolutely gone crazy. Another listener on to say, Fran, I'd like to ask our local government TDs why the government voted against an emergency payment for disabled people and their carers. Many carers and disabled disabled people are already struggling with the cost of living, and carers in particular provide an incredible service that saves the state billions of euro every year and helps keep our health system functioning. I think people would really appreciate a clear explanation for the decision and an outline of what supports the government plans to put in place instead. Disabled people and carers don't want praise, they want practical support that recognises the vital role they play in our society. And that comes in from Barbara, who describes herself as a full-time carer. And the Dáil voted on that Soc Dems motion calling on the government to introduce an emergency winter payment within a month of €400 for disabled people. And the party says that disabled people were €1,400 a year worse off after the budget compared to 2025, but the government vote 81 to 66 on its counter-motion that stated that the coalition committed to introduce a permanent annual cost of disability support payment. So again, what do you make of that? Now, speaking of carers, earlier on this week, Michael Power joined us on the show to discuss the stark reality of life as a carer in Tipperary and indeed across the country. Edwina McElhinney from Families Unite for Services and Support was listening to the piece, and she joins me now. Good morning to you, Edwina.
Good morning, Fran.
And always good to talk to you, and thanks for coming on with me this morning. You described yourself as being incredibly moved by Michael's piece, Edwina.
Yeah, I'm saying it was a good job I wasn't on after him. I suppose I just want to. There are no words, I suppose, to describe their grief at the moment, and I'm very conscious of that. And I want to thank them really for highlighting what it is like. It isn't something that's spoken about, how caring, I suppose, what it's like to be a carer. There's a lot of talk about, the financial end of it and trying to access services and the fight.
And just for listeners who maybe didn't hear it, really, for probably the first time, Michael spoke about being a carer and the impact on a relationship and the impact on the rest of the family as well. Just for listeners who maybe didn't hear it. Why do you think that's not spoken about very often, Edwina?
I think because there isn't a platform for it, to be honest. And I'm delighted that Tipp FM are providing that platform, that space now. There is, when you become a carer, and it doesn't matter what age you become a carer, you are immediately different, like you're different to other people then. Your life changes, and you become isolated over the years. You can become isolated from family, friends. People just don't understand what it's like to care constantly, 24/7 of the day. People say, oh, look, but, when they're in day service or if a child is in school or whatever, you're not caring 24/7. Of course you are. You're available at a minute's notice at any time. And it's 365 days of the year. It doesn't matter whether you're sick yourself or, it's just, that kind of, it changes your life, it does. And I was delighted to see Michael talking about it.
And did it resonate with you when he spoke about his relationship with Maggie, whereas, the idea of a date night is out of the question? In their case, it was a hospital night at best, and maybe going to the vending machine for something to eat, and that kind of thing where the spotlight obviously is on the person being cared for. Yeah, and as I said to you, like I suppose I'm trying not to get emotional myself, but it changes your life. It changes your relationship with your partner. If you have a partner, it changes your life with your family. It changes your life with your friends. And as I said to you, you become increasingly isolated then as a result. You're not able to attend things that, people would have been, parties, birthday parties, events. You mightn't always be able to attend these things. If you're, nights out, those kinds of things, that's all gone. Date nights, do you know what I mean? Like that's
that's like unicorn stuff,
And something that I observe as well, Edwina, and you might confirm this, it seems okay for parents of, healthy kids to be able to speak about the difficulty of parenting, for example, and maybe just the day-to-day difficulties of looking after a child. But it appears to me that people would people be judging you a little bit if you were to describe the difficulties of parenting a child with special needs? Is it a completely different ball game, is what I'm saying?
It is I'm going to say, Fran, it is the very same as parenting a non-disabled child, but you have extra. It's an extra. It's you've all the same worries, in terms of keeping them happy and healthy, and having friends and getting on in life, and you want all of those things, but you have all of the other things, fighting for services, fighting for health, fighting for financial things, hospital visits, tracing up and down. You, as I said, you lose friendships. Your circle becomes very small. It's all of those things, and I genuinely feel that it is only when you talk to someone else who is in your situation that they can truly understand. And that's kind of like a social barrier, because people who don't care aren't reaching into those who do care to understand what life is like.
Yeah, and is there a pressure on parents like yourself as well to be kind of super people in some sort of a fashion,
Yeah, I suppose the overnight you become an advocate, and you become, in my case, you become that parent. That parent who will question, who will argue, who will fight for things, who will demand the best for their child. And it's just, constantly trying to find information on things yourself. It's just, it's a baptism of fire, and nothing prepares you for it.
And it changes you drastically, I suppose, does it?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, 100%, Fran. I'm quite quite a quiet person. I'm quite introverted, and I suppose I really had to change. I'll now take up the fight for my child, but also for other people's children. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it isn't who I am, if you get me. Do you know what I mean? I'm very much kind of like a live and let live kind of person.
Sure.
But it has changed, definitely. You have to do your research. You have to fight. It's hard. It is.
Tell me about you gave a word. Well, you gave a number of pieces to Leanne, but there's one word that you put in there, which was just isolation. Would you tease that out for me, Edwina? When you speak about isolation, is that you being isolated?
Yes. You as I said, you become. You do become isolated in terms of, and particularly I find that if you were a single parent or someone that's caring on their own, and this can happen to anyone at any age. I keep saying that, that you become isolated because you may have to give up work. You're not able to attend the same amount of social events that you would have done before. Your friends or your family mightn't understand what it's like. They don't. I find that in a lot of cases, family doesn't want to kind of get involved. They're happy for people to become the carer and just leave them at it. And you become more isolated as a result, because, and even I find that, when you are a parent of a child with a disability, having to fight for things, that there's an awful sense of isolation in that, because you don't know where to go for information, and you don't know where to go, what to do. there doesn't seem to be anyone help. Nobody wants to take responsibility and offer help for your child, so you have to go and ask for it, and I just see that all of the time, and it's one of the main reasons why I got involved. Just on a personal story, if you don't mind. But,
yes, please.
I remember my son what started me into it, actually, Fran, was into the whole advocacy thing. I remember my son, he was about touching, he'd have been about 2, he was touching 2 at the time. And this was in the pandemic. And I remember we went to a medical assessment. Sorry now. And I remember we went into, and that time you could only go in, 15 minutes was your limit, and, you were out the door because COVID came in, on the 16th minute. And I remember we went for the assessment, and myself and my husband were there, and the doctor, she said, she gave us a diagnosis, and I just kind of explained, I was kind of completely confused. I was saying, what do you mean? A diagnosis of global development delay. I was kind of like, because we didn't know. We were completely naive, And I remember her turning the sheet. She was marking a sheet, and she turned the sheet around on the table and pushed it towards me. And she said to me, it's because it's all, it's like global development delayed. And she was marking off this sheet, and she said, because it's all across the page. They'd done, they graded, or they marked it down, like kind of 1 to 5 or whatever. And there was so many different areas and blah, blah, blah. So, where he wasn't meeting the target.
Yes.
And, we were out the door, literally 15 minutes, get out the door. There was no explanation.
But you were presented with this explosive news.
A sheet of paper, yeah.
And you had 15 minutes to...
But that was at the end of the conversation.
Wow.
If you get me.
So you couldn't ask questions or interrogate her in any way?
No, out the door. And I remember afterwards looking and looking up what global development delay as well. Went online, and it was the language was horrific. And I'll never forget how I felt, how we felt that day, and trying to get information ourselves on what that meant, what it meant for the future. And I'll never forget how I felt. And I swore to myself afterwards that I would never allow anybody to feel that way again. And that's why I got into doing what I do, to provide information to people, to answer questions. Any question. There's no such thing as a stupid question or, an inappropriate question or whatever. If you don't know something, come and ask me. And that's my main reason for doing it.
The other thing that strikes me, Edwina, is the Edwina I'm talking to now as opposed to maybe Edwina that I would have spoken to, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Do you lose the core of your personality and you become Edwina, the parent of a boy with special needs? You become Edwina, who is fighting for services. So your personality almost is overtaken in some fashion.
You do lose yourself, yeah, you do. And that's something that I'm aware of, and obviously I've done a lot of work towards. But you do change. You do lose a part of yourself. That's undoubted. Because your life has changed, and I'm not saying that it's a negative thing. I'm just saying that it's a fact. Your life changes, and I'm aware that I don't have a complex medical child, and I'm aware of what life is like for them, and that I can see things from the outside, but obviously I'm not in their shoes. Do you know, that kind of way? And I understand that it's caring at another level, and it's another level of stress that I don't have, and I'm lucky that I don't.
I've often spoken to you in the past as well of the way you're patronised if you're the parent of, and I know that particularly annoys you, Edwina, because, especially coming up to elections and stuff, we hear about how wonderful you are, but after that then,
Yeah, as I said to you, you become that parent or that carer, sister, whatever, if you're a parent or a sister or a partner or whatever, you become that person. And, you're treated differently because you ask questions, or that you're not just willing to be brushed off, and that you obviously have to fight for everything. You fight for everything. And that even medical professionals mightn't always listen to your opinion. That's something that comes up and is a great source of hurt to carers. That where your opinions aren't valid. They're just kind of dismissed or invalidated in some way. I've spoken time and time again to you about the political landscape and how they are treated, and how carers are treated. And I'm particularly outraged at the moment about the announcement and how the announcement of special needs classes has gone on. But I'm not going to go into that today. I'm very cross over it.
When you see the front of the Examiner today, just 7% of post-primary schools have opened the number of special classes targeted by the department, and more than a third have yet to open any at all.
Yeah. I think that, and I said it to someone the other day, we have hit a new low in terms of, as a society, I think, because it is a society problem, because we tolerate it. We have hit a new low in terms of how people with disabilities are treated in this country, and how children with disabilities are treated in this country by our government. We have certainly hit a new low. Things have been declining, but it's official, we've hit a new low with how we're treated. What
did you think of the vote on the Soc Dems motion calling on the government to introduce that emergency winter payment of €400 for disabled people? And they went on to say, in fact, that disabled people were €1,400 a year worse off after the budget compared to 2025. But anyway, the vote there was a counter motion, and the government won on this. What do you make of that kind of news? And are they playing politics with you as well as everything else?
Oh yeah. Oh well, and that's what I'm saying to you. We've become, it's a new low. But I think time and time again we've been shown how the government continues to talk out of two sides of its mouth. They'll come out and there's just endless PR videos on how good and how well they look after disabled people and their carers in this country. There are endless PR videos on social media. And yet, when it comes down to brass tacks of having to cough up a few pounds just so people could survive, the door is shut. And we see it in every aspect, whether it's financially, whether it's the provision of respite, whether it's the provision of school places. They'll come out and they'll announce these big announcements and big clapping and back slapping and we're great and all of these classes that they're announcing, but they don't actually materialise, Fran.
And now you have a situation where revenue is going after carers for back payments, And
yeah. And that's what I'm saying to you, Fran. It's talking out of two sides of their mouth. They're saying they're forever talking about, because it is such a hot topic. They're talking about how care, and it's a hot topic because things have gotten so bad. They've never been as bad as they are right now, and even since I started doing advocacy, things have steadily declined.
That's incredible.
And we have hit a new low in terms of how things are done.
That's incredible to hear that, Edwina. Yeah.
The response from any of the government ministers is that, aren't we giving you an extra few pounds in the budget? That's the response. But you're paying tax on that. It's not free. You are paying tax. And you're earning less than €2 an hour being a 24/7 carer. But that doesn't matter.
Edwina, I must leave it there, but it's always so good to talk to you, and I know it's difficult for you to find time to talk to us, but always grateful to talk to you. Thanks, Edwina. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fran.
Thank you. Bye-bye to you now. It's Edwina McElhinney there of Families Unite for Services. We'll take a break and we're back in a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp Today on 1-800-938 007.
Now, over recent months, we've been inundated with correspondence from people around the Tipperary town area about water issues. And at the January Municipal District meeting, Cllr John O'Heney disputed Uisce Éireann's claim that only water pressure had been reduced, stating that many residents have faced complete water shut-offs. And Councillor O'Heney joins me now. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, Fran. Thank you for having me this morning, and good morning to all your listeners.
I think you were rather cross about Uisce Éireann's explanation, John.
Yes, it was a very conscientious issue there at the meeting on Monday, and I suppose, look, spoke very passionately about the water issues that are currently being faced by people in Tipperary town and the surrounding areas. The water pressure in the town is being turned down each and every evening, and this is causing major disruption to people in the area. And there's reports of appliances not working. People that are working different work patterns are coming home and having no access to water in their houses. And the following day, it takes several hours for the pressure to build back up in certain areas of the town. And it's causing damage to some appliances. Plumbers have to come out and look at shower units, at washing machines. It's become a very hot topic in Tipperary town. One of severe frustration for people, because the district of Tipperary Cashel Cllr wrote to Uisce Éireann before Christmas to seek an explanation regarding what was going on about this. And, you know, their response was very vague, more or less passing over the issue, more or less denying that there is an issue. And they've no correspondence up on their website as regards letting people know what's going on. So the level of communication from Uisce Éireann regarding this issue has been non-existent.
Yeah, and that's the ongoing criticism from all areas of the county and beyond as well, that notion of information sharing or lack of.
Yes, and it's hugely frustrating for people. Most people are very willing to accept an explanation if there was a level of transparency and honesty regarding some of the issues they're facing as regards water services around the county. I think most people are very accepting if they knew that this was just a short-term issue and that there was a resolution in sight. Even if it had to take a couple of weeks or even a month or two, people would be willing to accept that. But for Uisce Éireann to brush over this as a non-event, and more or less deny that this is an issue for people is incredibly frustrating. I'm inundated with phone calls from people around Tipperary town and the surrounding areas who have had severe disruption to their water services, maybe since last Halloween, and there's no resolution in sight. And each and every evening the water pressure has been turned down out near the reservoir in Cordangan. I have this on very good authority from people within the Uisce Éireann organisation. They're being told and given orders what to do, but the organisation itself are passing this off as a non-event. But it's become a very serious event, and people are rightly frustrated. And as public representatives, we're seeking answers about, consistently.
So, and because of this, John, you can't give people a time frame, then, can you, in which these issues will be dealt with by Uisce Éireann? Is that it?
No, I can't, which is incredibly frustrating, because if I was able to tell people as they ring me or as they contact me, well, yes, I'm on top of this issue, there's a resolution in sight within the next couple of weeks, I think people would be more than accepting of that. But for me to be able to, not being able to give people a resolution to this issue or to give them a timeline of when it will be resolved, it's deeply frustrating, both for myself as a representative of the area and for the people of the town, business people and, people, residents of the area. So it's an issue I'm going to keep pursuing until we get to the bottom of this.
But John, at the risk of annoying some of our listeners, could I play devil's advocate on this for just a moment and say to you, well, Uisce Éireann are dealing with an infrastructure that is gone so fragile and is so damaged over years of neglect that they are attempting to do something about this now, and inevitably there will be disruptions, inevitably there will be water shut-offs while they're doing this. Have we not to accept that if we're trying to fix the infrastructure?
Yes, I fully take your point on board there, Fran, and I would be very accepting of improvements in infrastructure in the area. If there was a level of communication given to people regarding issues that are taking place and solutions to the problem that people are facing, I think people would be more than willing to accept that their water infrastructure is being upgraded and it will provide a way better service than what they're currently dealing with. But only if Uisce communicate this to the general public and not leave things in the dark and have a veil of secrecy over works that are taking place or issues that are taking place. There's currently a boil water notice in the Iron Mills area, which would be Kappa White, Denoval, Salahead, over your direction, Fran.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
People were only informed of this maybe at very short notice. Again, below in Ardfinnan, there was a boil water notice for the best part of the majority of last year. There was no resolution in sight for an awful long time, but people would be more than willing to accept these things if they were told a timeline or given a solution to this. But the lack of communication is the frustrating issue here.
And sometimes, John, if you could get some of the reasoning behind the decision making to shut off the water or whatever. And you speak about Iron Mills, and you're right, that hits my own area there. And we did get notice that it was a boil water notice, but we don't know why. And over Christmas we were shut off a couple of days for the entire day. Now I'm on that text service where they let you know, and in fairness they did let us know, but we don't know why. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's it, and people do have a right to know what is happening to their water. It's a vital service, and people. I do think there's it's boiling over to a very high level of frustration with people now at this stage, because people have it ingrained in their consciousness that maybe the Tipperary County Council are still in charge of the water in the area, but that's not the case anymore. So people are ringing public representatives looking for answers, and we are not being able to provide them with suitable answers and solutions and resolutions is very frustrating for people, and they've nowhere to go and nowhere to turn to. And sometimes that the communication on the website isn't up to date. A lot of elderly people wouldn't be signed up to those tech services. I received an awful lot of phone calls and correspondence from people within the Iron Mills treatment area. A lot of elderly people looking to know what the situation was, what was going on. They have access to internet, but they're not signed up to the tech service. They found it difficult to navigate the Irish Water website as well. And these people are, they're on their own. Maybe their family are not around, and they're looking to. You just boil a kettle of water in the morning to have a cup of tea, and they're not able to do that. Of course.
Well, I mean, I know that John, that we could do items on this every single day of the week with frustration that's out there. I'm just about out of time, but before I go, can I ask you, do you have any sort of an update on the ophthalmologist situation in the South Tip area? Because again, some of our listeners are wondering about that. Is there an update on that?
I've only recently, just in the last 2 days, spoken to the HSE. They were to get back to me again this week on it to provide me with a proper update. That they had a second and third recruitment campaign running. All were unsuccessful up until Christmas last year. They had a new recruitment deadline there for the 8th of January, the 8th or 9th of January, and they were finalising the details from that campaign there last week. And I spoke to the general manager there a few days ago, and she was to get back to me with an update. It's again a very frustrating issue that's going on.
When you say that there wasn't a result, are you saying there were no applicants for?
No applicants, no, Fran. Wow. There was no applicants before Christmas. It is a very specialised position, and not everyone has the qualifications for this particular area of eye care. But we've been left behind here in South Tipperary and North Waterford. It's a whole region in the country that the waiting lists now are 2,500, 3,000 on a waiting list. It's going to take a huge effort to even clear that waiting list. The last 18 months, a lot of parents have had to go for private treatment at a major financial cost to them, which has been very frustrating. There had been light at the end of the tunnel last year when someone had accepted the position. due to their own personal circumstances, they weren't able to uptake it, and now we're back to square one. So I'm hoping to have a further update this week for people in regarding that issue as well, and it would be great to get a resolution to it too.
All right, thanks for your time, John. Thank you. Good morning to you. Cllr John O'Heney speaking to us there. News and information is coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and you're very welcome back to the second hour of Tipp Today. We're coming to you live from our studio on Pearse Street in Nenagh. Now, there's been much debate in recent weeks around whether the Taoiseach Micheál Martin should make the annual visit to the White House in Washington on this St. Patrick's Day. And Fionnan Sheehan, Ireland editor of the Irish Independent, has been examining this in a recent opinion piece, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Fionnan.
Good morning, Fran.
Thanks very much indeed for your time this morning. You said in the piece that the Taoiseach has to think about the long-term strategic interests of a country heavily dependent on our economic ties to the United States. You'd imagine that shouldn't even have to be pointed out.
Well, there are certain people on the opposition benches who don't seem to agree with that, who think that the Taoiseach shouldn't be going to Washington, shouldn't be going to the White House. And the point is that's all very nice rhetoric, and you can attach that to whatever deplorable act Donald Trump is carrying out in that particular week. But the reality is that there's 250,000 jobs in Ireland that are based around the US multinational sector based in Ireland. And likewise, there are thousands of jobs in Irish companies based in the United States. We have long-standing economic, social, political and cultural ties. So basically, it would be a big deal if an Irish Taoiseach was to turn down an invitation from an American president to come over and commemorate our National Day. It also is a reality that not every country is afforded this. Yeah. We're actually the only ones who basically get the whole of the political system in Washington dedicating themselves to recognising one particular country of a day. It's not just the presenting a bowl of shamrock in the White House. There's another reception in the White House that a lot of influential people attend. There's then a lunch on Capitol Hill, which is probably even more significant. Yeah. The leaders of the Congress and the Senate host that. The President makes only 2 trips to Capitol Hill every year. One is to make the State of the Union address, and the other one is for the St. Patrick's Day lunch. So we'd be cancelling all that. There would also be the Irish Ambassador's reception, the Ireland Fund dinner, a load of other events that happen in Washington, which basically make sure that the American political system, those associated with, know about Irish concerns on an annual basis, which is a privilege that no other country has. I mean, I don't. This was there long before Donald Trump. It'll be there hopefully long after Donald Trump, but we can't just take it for granted inside on a yearly basis. Actually, we're not going to turn up this year. The invite won't come back the following year. Because
am I right in saying that the Irish-American lobby is not quite as powerful as it used to be? So that notion of turning the tap on and off then certainly would be dangerous for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've done very well out of the Irish-American lobby. Irish immigrants being very politically clued in, particularly along the East Coast. You look at New York, Boston, Philadelphia, in as far as Chicago, pretty much they would all say that their political systems were very much shaped by Irish immigrant community and significant figures, everything from Tammany Hall to the Kennedys have influenced American politics quite strongly, and as a result of that, we've had a big feel-good factor off the back of it. And the Irish American lobby have been seen to be very influential. And that's largely speaking why US presidents have continued to invite the Irish in for the day. You've had presidents such as George W. Bush and Donald Trump himself who don't really have, they've no Irish lineage as such to point to, but they realise it is important politically to continue with this tradition, and we're not guaranteed that's going to continue forever. We had the great times with Joe Biden going around telling everybody he was Irish all of the time, and he was very strong about his Irish roots dating back to the famine. And he could trace them back to that, and to County Mayo and to County Louth, and he had his full family tree drawn out, and he got great joy out of telling the British that he was Irish. That he might be the last one who we can turn to, and the last president for quite some time who we can turn to and say, he was an Irish American president, given the way that demographics are changing in the United States. Trump does also have his own economic interests in Ireland. Given that he's got the Doonbeg Golf Club and Resort down in County Cllr, which is a significant investment on his part, hosting the Irish Open this year. So he has a general interest in what's happening in Ireland. I think we saw last year that the Taoiseach, in difficult circumstances, was able to kind of get in and out of the White House and survive. Which came so soon after the diplomatic incident with Vladimir Zelensky. So, he's sharp enough to do that. We also know that basically the Irish voice is respected. We don't really have the communication difficulties. We know the Americans well enough now that we know how to speak their language. So if there are issues of concern, the Taoiseach will bring those up in whatever way that he sees fit, just as Enda Kenny did. Enda Kenny spoke about the importance of respecting migrants and the long tradition in the United States when he visited the White House during Trump's first term. So those elements are all there, but to just turn around and say, Trump is doing this week, therefore we shouldn't turn up in Washington on St. Patrick's Day, it doesn't really look at the big picture, and it's not a very mature way of addressing it. I'm quite not surprised by some of the people who've been calling for that, but to hear the Labour Party, who are kind of, what you would regard as a kind of grown-up party and would take these things on board in a broader view, to hear them calling for this is a bit strange.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, according to that Business Post poll, Fionnan, 47% I think of Irish people wanted him to boycott the White House. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why I think this is the Taoiseach's job to explain why it is important that he does turn up. This is called leadership, just as the government has to explain, why that roads project is going ahead and this one isn't. Just as the government has to explain, this is why we are taking a certain route and not another. These are choices that a government has to take, and it is absolutely, it is up to the Taoiseach and the government to get out there and explain to people, because it can be quite a kind of a distant thing. It's the Taoiseach is abroad. They're not at home viewing what the Irish audience is receiving these trips. It's seen as kind of a bit of a showbiz type thing that's happening over in America. So it's up to the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach to get out there in advance and explain, well, this is actually why we are doing these things. I mean, likewise, you get the list this week of places where all of the ministers are going for St. Patrick's Day, and 30 odd of them spanning out across the globe. And there's kind of a lack of effort on the government's part to try and explain to people, well, actually there is a value to this. There's a value to keeping up those economic political, diplomatic, social, and cultural links with all these different countries around the world, but they don't really bother.
I'm not sure if you saw that exchange between Ruth Coppinger and the Taoiseach in the Dáil. Very emotional one. She made reference to that post-war poem, First They Come For, and it speaks about the dangers of apathy. But she all but accused him of cowardice, that she said he didn't speak up about Venezuela or the bombing of Iran, etc., and that it was his place to do so. It was a remarkable exchange, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and there's been a number of those in recent weeks, and Taoiseach has batted back as well. He has said on a number of occasions, particularly those on the left, that, well, he doesn't hear criticism of the Iranian regime inside in the Dáil a whole lot. It's always about America, and he's picked up that argument a number of times. He said that he often says that those in the left wing are very selective in terms of who they criticise on a global stage and who they don't. He was making the same point a couple of years ago during his first term as Taoiseach about Russia. He was basically accusing Sinn Féin at the time of not criticising Russia, and then of course a couple of months later Russia invaded Ukraine, and it all kicked off and everybody was condemning him. But his point seems to be, if you're going to criticise one country, well, then you have to be consistent in terms of criticising others for human rights abuses. That's what you do. That's what diplomacy is about. That's what politics is about. You engage with people and you talk to them. And at the same time, there is going to be a vast number of people who will look at his trip to the White House in the Vatican saying, "Go, what's he doing there? He's not speaking for me." So that's up to him to get out there and explain to people exactly what the purpose of that visit is. It's called leadership. Yeah,
and you make the point as well in your piece, Fionnan, about that fine line between membership of the EU, for example, and our economic and political ties to the United States. So that's another fine line there, isn't it?
It's a very tricky line that we're following now because we have, I suppose, closer ties than many other EU countries would have with the United States. I mean, every country will say, they have a strong immigrant community who left for the United States at one time or another. But the Irish relationship is probably unique in that regard in terms of the level of influence that we brought about for historic reasons. So at the same time, he does have to fly the EU flag. He will be taking up the presidency of the EU later on in the year. But I suppose what we have seen over recent times with Trump is that he says something one week but doesn't necessarily follow up with it with the following week, and you literally don't know what the issue is going to be when the Taoiseach goes over there in March, because Trump is so volatile. You could turn around now and say, "Oh, we're not going because such a thing happened in the United States," or "Trump said this, so therefore we're not going." And you could end up in 6 weeks' time with people going, "Remind me again what Trump said back then," because something else happened in the intervening period. So I think the Taoiseach has been fairly cautious on all of these issues. He's been very cautious in terms of kind of not jumping to conclusions, not getting ahead of things, and letting them play out, be sure of where you stand. But at the same time, just not running away with it and deciding, "Oh, the sky is falling in, we need to make sure now that we cut off all ties with the United States." I mean, ultimately, the Taoiseach was always also been told to shut down Shannon Airport to any United States military traffic. He was basically been told to cut off all ties, and that's not the way in which you do business with a country with which you have such strong ties. But at the same time, he can go over there and he can show people that, he's willing to stand up and express the concerns of people in Ireland and Europe in the most powerful office. What we have seen with Trump is that, strangely enough, he tends to listen to people who get his ear, this seems to be the problem with him, that he is
the last person he speaks to,
by the last person who spoke to him. So the Taoiseach will have a chance for 5 minutes to be that last person who spoke to him and who can express the view that, listen, people in Europe aren't terribly impressed by what's going on here, and we're here as a kind of as a fair arbiter, and somebody who, and he'll be there as somebody who has a relationship with both sides on the transatlantic divide.
And speaking of the Taoiseach, and just before I let you go, also in your article, you mentioned that the jury is still out on Micheál Martin's modernisation of Fianna Fáil, which is kind of interesting because this is not the Fianna Fáil that I grew up with, if you know what I mean, Fionnan, because it's a much more liberal party now. And is that not modernisation?
Yeah, there is, but I mean, the kind of been dragged towards liberalism certainly didn't lead on same-sex marriage, certainly didn't lead on abortion. If anything, there seemed to be a majority of the parliamentary party, anyway, who were opposed to the abortion referendum. But in terms of the Fianna Fáil organisation and its ability to move with the times, I think there are still question marks there. He has changed some aspects of the structures of the organisation. He came in and saw that there was basically a level of disorganisation. There wasn't even a database of all members. He changed the manner in which candidates are selected to give every member of the party a vote, rather than kind of people being able to create their own fiefdoms around the branches or common structure that was in place, and that caused some controversy. But I mean, you're hearing this from within the party itself. It was reflected again in the presidential election, that they seem to be behind the curve in terms of not just appealing to younger voters, but even being able to communicate with younger voters, and that's where I think Fianna Fáil have very much struggled. Yeah, you are an establishment party, and therefore you're going to have a difficulty getting to people who perhaps want an alternative voice and who want change, but at the same time they probably haven't helped themselves in that regard with some of the kind of fairly dated means that they've been using up until now.
Appreciate the time as always, Fionnan. Thank you and good morning to you. Thank you. That's Fionnan Sheehan there, Tipperary man, of course, and Ireland editor with The Independent. And that article I was making reference to there is still up online if you want to have a look at that. It's rather interesting. One of our listeners, anyway, not at all impressed with the notion that we might go abroad to present Ireland around the world on St. Patrick's Day. This person saying, free holidays on the Irish taxpayers, for God's sake, Fran. Okay. Where the water is concerned, and I was speaking to Cllr John O'Heney about this around Tipperary town. One of our listeners on to say, and this person describes themselves as a former local authority worker that worked in the water area for many years. It's turned down on purpose, it says, in an attempt to reduce overall loss. Unfortunately, Irish Water, or Ishgaren as they are now, set the pressure at the meter box to the house at the highest point in the town too low. It's totally avoidable, and it saves absolutely no water. Now, I can't really make head or tail of that because it's certainly not my field of expertise, but it's an interesting point, I'm sure. But basically, I think what that person is saying, that there's no need for the power to be reduced, and that it doesn't help where the conservation is concerned as well. Martin Brown was on to us, former Sinn Féin TD in Cashel there. He says, well done to Edwina and indeed to Michael Parr this week on the show. They've shown themselves to be great advocates for people with special needs. Somebody else saying, Fran, a really interesting item on demographics. I was really shocked at the average ages of marriages and first births, but I think the inaccessibility of affordable is a huge factor. None of our 4 adults children are within the assessment roar of affording even a humble place of their own to begin establishing their own nest. And what limited options there are, even vaguely within their grasp, are inevitably very distant from their network of support. We've been prioritising the wrong things in creating the society we now have. But it was nice to hear the hopeful tone of your contributor and indeed your own lovely presence, says Brendan Conwell. Thank you for that, Brendan. 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Tipp Today, coming to you live from Nenagh today. Now, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by community activist Brendan Murphy. Good morning to you, Brendan.
Good morning, Fran.
And good to see you today. You've been writing in The Guardian recently a very interesting piece indeed about retail and the whole retail sector. And I suppose the headline says it all, in that retail, your staff are your key ingredient for success. But just off air, we were talking about how things have changed over the years for retail, Brendan. They've changed drastically, haven't they?
They've changed drastically, and I noticed the change. I've been in retail, I suppose, the best part of 20 years, and based in Nenagh, and I've seen huge changes. Even at the Christmas period, if you look back to the 90s, Christmas shopping probably started around the 8th of December, and it was a mad rush up until Christmas Eve. I remember working in Gough O'Keeffe's, and we could have been there well after 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, even some evenings.
And you described the chaos around the town.
The chaos. Cars double parked, people boot doors open, flying out of shops with presents and all sorts. I know in Gough O'Keeffe's at the time, a big seller around that time was full of beds because the visitors were coming home for Christmas. So, but that's all gone. But that whole, it was chaos, but it was fantastic to see it.
Yeah, of course.
But it seems to have been calmed down a lot in recent years. Slowly but surely over the last maybe 10 years, it's really calmed down, I've noticed.
And the pandemic really sort of changed everything.
It did. Yeah. The pandemic changed a lot, and I suppose the restrictions accelerated online sales. So the online sales grew from 5.5% roughly to about, we'll say 22% during the pandemic. Now it's settled down a bit. It's between 15 and 20% at the moment. That's the total retail sales. So it's a huge jump up compared to where it was, and it has to have an impact on
And the
on
trajectory
local
of
sales.
that, is that on the increase all of the time?
It is, of course. Yeah, it's all the time on the climb. So, and I suppose the piece was really about what we can do to kind of, I suppose, to keep our shops in their towns, because we want to support shop local. We want our stores to stay open, and what people can do, what people in stores can do. And really, I suppose, with the online piece, it's not going anywhere. We need to embrace it. So I think for shops, it's very important to have an online presence, to offer click and collect, or to have an online store. Definitely.
But how do you make the best of that? I mean, if you take a boutique, for instance, in Nenagh, and they have an online presence, but you have boutiques in every single town around the country, and then you have all the international options as well for people. How does a small business compete online, if you know what I mean, Brandon?
It's very hard to do that, but I suppose if you direct people into your store, that's where your staff come into play, because your staff they're the sales drivers. They turn your browsers into buyers, and I suppose they're the face of your business. So if they're accommodating and offering good customer service to people coming into your store, that's a unique selling point that you can't get online, and that's something we need to embrace and really drive forward to keep these shops open.
So that is the way forward. Then you need to invest in your staff to a large degree, and sometimes it's difficult to pay staff as well.
It is, and I suppose, and having the right staff, that's another thing as well, having the right staff in the place, because if you have staff that are, I suppose, negative, and a customer walks in and they're not interested, people will always remember how you made them feel when they walk into a store. So if you give them a good customer experience, they'll come back, they'll tell their friends, they'll tell their family. But if they have a negative experience, they'll still do the same, but you've done damage to your business. So it's important to have your finger on the pulse as to what your staff, and have them trained, and make sure that they're exercising good customer service when customers come into the shop.
And I know it might be controversial to say so, but with some exceptions, I think the quality of staff in our retail is on a downward trajectory, to be honest with you, compared to years ago. The welcome, the interaction, all of that kind of thing. Is that fair comment?
It's something we need to revisit. Now, it's not in all stores, but I noticed it, and I suppose having worked in retail so long, I find myself observing a lot when I walk into stores.
Yeah, sure.
And I look at things like that. There's a mix. Some stores are brilliant. I mean, staff are good and enthusiastic. When you walk in, even if the shop is busy, they'll acknowledge that you're there, and straight away you're at ease because you've been noticed.
Yes.
You'll walk into some stores and they might be glued to their phones or be disinterested, and that's a turn off straight away, and I wouldn't encourage you to go back. So I suppose, and that's where the shop owners need to be in touch with what their staff are doing and have the finger on the pulse, because they could be doing everything right and have an online store, drive customers into the shop, but they could have the wrong staff there, and it's not doing them any favours.
So what is the best way around that then?
I suppose staff training is a big thing. I suppose, and
to invest in training.
Exactly, because they're the face of your brand. So you need to make sure that they're doing the right things on shop floor.
Because some of the places I go to be honest with you, I said to myself, does the owner ever walk in here and even spend a few moments observing what's going, because they miss out on basic things. I'm talking about sometimes you go into a restaurant, the music is either inappropriate or too loud. It's very hard to catch somebody's eye to give an order. In one instance recently, in a fairly upmarket place, I saw a bottle of wine was plonked on a table, literally, and the person walked away without saying anything. Stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a big thing. And you could go into a restaurant and you could have your meal and whatever else, and you might remember the price, you might remember what you had, but you'll always remember how you're made feel or what happened in the restaurant, and that's what'll stick. So it's important that experience is always good. From a retail point of view and from a restaurant, hospitality, it's so important, because you'll associate a shop or a business with how you felt when you were in there, whether that was good or bad. So, we need to work on that really if we're going to try and keep the bricks and mortar retail stores open in our towns.
Right, and do you get the feeling from the people that you talk to who are in business that they are fully aware of it? It sounds basic, but do you get the feeling that they're aware of it?
I don't think so. Some are and some are not. It's a mixed bag really, but you would notice in the stores that you do get the welcome, and that those staff members are well trained up and they know what they're doing. They have an interest in their job and they want the business and they want you to go back and to tell people about the business and to bring more people into the shop.
Yeah,
but you'll see the opposite in some other stores where you walk in and you'll say, God, I'm after coming in, I'm willing to spend money, but you know what, I'm not going to now because they've no interest.
Diversifying as well. You have to keep your ear to the ground where that is concerned. You might need to move a business one way or the other, or expand in one area or the other, and I guess that could be the future as well for you, the success of the business.
It's very important. It's very important. But again, I suppose it's looking at all areas and making sure you're making the most out of your business. And I think the online presence is a huge thing. Social media is massive. Not to name drop now, but I did contact the local pet store here. Sandra Williams is the owner. Pet Zone. My rabbit needed a new hutch. Benny needed a new hutch. And it was after 6 o'clock. I just cleaned out the cage and I came in and I said, you know what, I'm going to send them a message now while it's in my head. They'll probably answer me tomorrow. Send a message asking, do you have any of these in stock? Came back straight away. Within 5 minutes, I hadn't the phone left on the table.
Even though it was after 6?
Offering after 6 o'clock. With options, and we'll be back to you tomorrow with options, but we definitely have them. Why would I go anywhere else? That's a fantastic service. I'm not encouraging people to message shops after 6 o'clock, but still, I'm just saying it comes into your head, and I think particularly in Nenagh and towns like Nenagh, you'll associate people with the shop. Right. And people buy people first. So, and
that's how you build
a very important
loyalty with
exactly, and rapport with your customers.
Yeah. Is there enough government support, do you think, for what we're discussing here, for making the best of your business?
I think businesses are under pressure, there's no doubt about it, and especially with the rates as well. It's not helping. And like wages, you have to pay wages. If people are not happy, if they're not getting paid or don't think they're getting paid enough, they're not going to be happy. So it's getting a balance. But it is very difficult for businesses, there's no doubt about it. And I don't think there is enough support from government on that.
So have you come to a conclusion then? To some degree, I suppose, the genie is out of the bottle on this, particularly where the online is concerned. But the conclusion is that, invest in your people, and it really is that customer experience.
I think so. Have the right people in your stores. Look at what you're doing and see how you can improve it. How can you drive more people into store? If that's creating an online shop, if it's going on social media, and just to name another business in town, Open Season, Kevin McSherry is a TikTok sensation. I'm not sure if you've seen his videos online, the open season, the shop here in town. But I mean, he's a great way of talking on camera,
this
showing
is the
different products.
Exactly. Stores. Yes, he's been with us several times. Here,
so definitely worth looking on TikTok, but at what he's doing, and I'm sure that's improved his sales as well. I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning him. But you have to think outside the box sometimes, because online is it's not going anywhere. We need to embrace it and see what we're doing in store to make sure that we keep our doors open and obviously to shop local and encourage people to shop local.
Now, obviously, you've had closures and you have had businesses, restaurants and pubs shut down over the years, but certainly the perception is out there that by comparison to other towns, Nenagh does pretty well.
Nenagh is quite resilient, and during, we'll say, the recession, we had the lockdown. Nenagh has held its own, and it's down to people supporting the shop local here. People are great to support local business, and it's to keep that going, keep that momentum going. To support local business and local jobs as well. So it's very important. But Nenagh is a standout town, I think, and we don't realise how lucky we are and how resilient we are, because even at the worst of times here, there was never too many shops vacant on the main street. There was always somebody coming in. There was always something happening. And again, it's a great community spirit and the shop local ethos that we have.
I think some of the best cafes and restaurants and pubs in the county as well, and that certainly helps, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
All right, good to talk to you, Brenda. Is that article up online, by the way, if people want to have a look at it?
It's at the Nenagh Guardian, yeah.
All right, good to see you as always. Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you, Fran.
We'll take a break. We're back with more in just a moment.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp Today on 1-800-938-007. Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
Welcome back to Tipp Today. Welcome back to Nenagh. Now, Tipperary Labour councillors Fiona Bonfield, Michael Chicken Brennan and Louise Morgan Walsh are calling for the introduction of no-wait cards for people with chronic and invisible illnesses. And Newport-based councillor Fiona Bonfield joins me now. Good morning to you, Fiona.
Hi, Fran. How you doing?
I'm well, and good to talk to you, Fiona. Thanks for coming on with us today. Just to begin with, will you just explain the no-wait card and what exactly it is?
Yeah, I suppose, Fran, these are in operation at the moment, but the idea is that, look, they don't have a legal standing, and I suppose no-wait cards are issued by organisations such as Crohn's and Colitis Ireland and Spinal Injuries Ireland, for people that have such illnesses, and basically that if they need access to a toilet facility, in an emergency, that basically with these no-wage cards that hopefully people and businesses would actually understand and would make their facilities available to them. But unfortunately, at the moment, those no-wage cards don't have a legal standing. So through the work of our Mark Wall TD, who's our Labour spokesperson on disability and equality, he actually since has introduced a bill in the Dáil, and basically he's hoping that eventually that these will become legal, and that's basically the idea behind our motion at the last council meeting.
And I know that you've spoken to people yourself who, they plan their lives, I guess, around, toilet availability and such, because that's the nature of their condition.
Yeah, and I suppose it was really a constituent of Mark Wall's himself, a lady by the name of Maria Crow, that came to him initially on this, and she is somebody who she lives with painful bladder syndrome, and she shared her life experience with Mark, and really what came out of it was she was saying having a no-wait card would mean the end of her explaining and justify to shops why she would need to use their toilet facility, and would also let her enjoy public events without the anxiety of looking for toilets and not attending them as well also. So, until you actually live through this experience yourself, it's very hard to understand. But it was actually through contact with Maria that Mark actually sat down and drafted this legislation.
Now, the motion is around a mandate that businesses with staff toilets would make them available to the card holders if the need was urgent. So businesses would have to buy into this in some way. Do you think there's an appetite for that out there, Fiona?
I do, Fran, I really do. And I suppose that was the idea why we put the motion into Tipperary County Council on it, is because, look, we will need the local authority and the local authorities across the country to come on board with this initiative. And I've no doubt that businesses will come on board, but it will be done, it will have to be done through health and, promotion with the local authority as well. And I suppose that's the idea why myself, Louise and Michael Chicken Brennan put in the motion initially into January's full council meeting. And I do know some local authorities across the country actually have supported it as well. So look, it has gained momentum, and since then Mark has drafted the legislation and he has produced the bill in the Dáil. Actually was introduced there on the 15th of January. So look, it is making headway, and hopefully it'll come to a stage where they will become legal.
Well, hopefully so indeed, because, you know, just the personal dignity that surrounds this as well. Would it be enough, or is it the vision of this motion, would it be enough for people to just present the card and not have to explain themselves, if you know what I mean, Fiona?
Yeah, well, I think that's the idea behind it, you know, like, I mean, with presenting the card, I mean, you know, people will understand, you know, like these cards have a legal footing, you know, that they're not issued to everybody, you know, that whoever they are issued to have a condition. And you know what, it's legislation, it's not solely about access. It's also recognising, you know, the lived realities of people with such conditions such as Crohn's and colitis, and ensuring that these spaces, they're inclusive and that they're responsive to the needs. And it just gives them a sense of dignity and equality in life as well. And I suppose, look, that's what we are. That's the idea behind the bill. And I do think business throughout the country will come on board. But I mean, that's the idea, is that these cards actually will become legal. And I do know, like with the Disabled Drivers Association, you have to apply for these and you have to give medical evidence as well. So I would think that in order to make it legal, you'll have to produce medical evidence that you have such a condition. But I mean, as I said, it's not just about access, it's about respect, inclusivity and everything that these people do deserve.
I remember discussing this topic of people with, you know, various different conditions that would lead them to having use of a toilet in emergency situations, and we had a lot of people talk to us about it, and again the dignity of it, or the indignity of the situation, came up time and time again, and also a lack of understanding about these conditions too, Fiona.
Yeah, and I suppose, Fran, there, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, as you know, Changing Places, we did launch an initiative, you know, through Tipperary County Council as well, and as you know, in Semple Stadium they have a Changing Place facility now. It was hard, you know, until you actually live through these experiences yourself, that, you know, that people with such conditions that have access to proper toilet facilities when they are needed. And we do know now that Semple Stadium was actually one of the facilities that actually have a no Changing Places bathroom in place now. And I know there's one up in Boher in Ballina as well. So these facilities are very important to these people that have these illnesses, and really they deserve equal rights as much as everybody.
I presume you had support right across the council for this, did you?
Oh, we did, Fran. Yeah, we did, without a shadow of a doubt. And I suppose really that's our job as well. You know, through my work as a counsellor, we come across individuals, we talk to them day in, day out. We talk to people with disabilities, and it's our job to ensure and to listen to their concern and to raise and highlight, you know, the inefficiencies that they see in their daily lives, you know what I'm saying? And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring in some form of legislation that make these no-wait cards have a legal footing, and that, you know, try and make their lives easier as they move, as they grow.
All right, good to talk to you today, Fiona. Thank you, and good morning.
Thanks, Fran.
To you.
Thanks a million.
Bye
now. Bye.
That's Labour Councillor Fiona Bonfield speaking to us there from Newport this morning. 1800 938 007. Now, Leanne has been let loose in the archives again, and she found another fantastic clip of a Tipperary broadcast. In 1985, reporters Marion Finucane and Doran Nivrian headed to Clonmel to chat to a local woman about the experiences of females in rural society.
Life has changed for women over the past few decades. Women who have lived in Clonmel all their lives don't shed many tears over some aspects of the world they grew up in.
All of you people came from very big families, 12, 13, 10 and so on. Doreen, is that something that when you were growing up, say when you were getting married, is it something that was ever talked about amongst women, amongst your friends, say?
No. You just didn't speak about it. Now, when you came home, you never spoke of anything that happened or anything that went on. I said to a girl one night, shortly before I was married, "Oh, what lad you taught? Find out for yourself," she said. So I said, "Thank you." That was all I was told.
Kitty, how about you? Do you remember around the time, around the time you were getting married? Now,
I got married, yes, in 1945. It left me 40 years married now at this stage.
But was there any talk in those days about family planning?
I was only 2 months married when my first child was on the way. So I couldn't say anything. I never said it to nobody. And I was going out my own door one day, and a woman was coming down the street, and she says to me, she shouted across at another woman, and she says,
It is finished. I said to myself, what's this about, you know?
Yeah.
I was a greenhorn, and then I needn't tell you I didn't know what it... Right, I was terribly sick and everything, and I was going along, and I said, what are they talking about, you know?
Well, of course, our parents didn't talk about it. They didn't tell us anything about sex in those days. It was taboo. You didn't talk about it.
Never. No.
I mean, I got married in 1936, and I was 23, and I was stupid. I was completely naive. You find the girls now of, say, 12, 14.
Oh, they can tell.
They know more now than we did when we got married.
But Minnie, do you think was that a good thing?
No, I think, truthfully, we shouldn't have been left in such ignorance. Mind, it didn't do us any harm, maybe. But, by the same token, I think a lot of the girls who fell, maybe, in those days, through ignorance. Whereas now, I feel it's through curiosity. They're being told so much, and they want to find out the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it was right to leave them in such ignorance.
Right. Would you agree, May?
I do. I agree. We were very, very innocent. Very.
And you think that wasn't a good thing?
Well, I think we should have been told a bit more. Or given some
basic facts of life.
Hints, or given something of the facts of life. I couldn't make it out.
Right. Do you think women have a better life now?
Definitely. The majority of them, their husbands will take them out at weekends at least. They will during the week if they can, but they'll take them out at weekends at least. Well, I never knew what it was to go out at night.
Did you not?
No. Anna had only the two, and one was 5 when the other girl was born. But I still, only in summer nights when you bring them with you and you go for a walk.
Can I ask you, Kitty, whether you think that things have improved for women?
Well, they have more freedom, women have, you know. I never went out anyhow. I sat under my children.
In our days, you'd never see a woman going into a public house. Any kind of decent person. Never. They wouldn't dream if their son seen coming out of a public house or something. Desperate altogether.
Life has improved, I should think, 100% for women.
Right.
And they insist that it does. They start if they mean to go on.
Do you think they're right to keep asking for more?
I really do. I mean, after all, why shouldn't the men take their turn?
Unusually, and not only in Clonmel, a woman presides over the Chamber of Commerce.
I'm actually the second president in Clonmel, and not only am I president, but we have 3 other ladies on the council. And for the past 2 years, I have been to AGMs, one in Killarney and the other in Galway, and they were really amazed to find a lady president. You know, so it's good for people to see the likes of me, for example. I consider myself just a housewife. I may run my own business. I'm a mother of 5 children. And when women look at me and say, oh gosh, president of the Clonmel Chamber of Commerce, it gives women a little boost, I think, because it means that they can go out themselves and do something that they, you know, they've set their mind on doing. They feel, if they look at me and say, well, if she can do it, I can do it.
Isn't that a fascinating piece? And Leanne is with me, and you dug that out of the archives. What did a young woman like yourself now, when you heard the content of that, what did you think?
Oh, it's sheltered, isn't it? It's such a different society, and especially when you compare it to even the headline you brought up today about the increase in harmful child sexual conduct.
Yeah.
That we're being exposed to it younger and younger. We talk about adult websites all the time, OnlyFans. But for these poor people, they knew nothing, and they wished they had an education.
But they were married, and they still knew nothing. They, you know...
Whereas nowadays...
Sex education, or they...
Yeah, there's such a push now. They have the clinics everywhere, the free health clinics. Every school has a programme around consent and sexual education. So to look back and imagine they were married and didn't know anything.
And some of the language even still being used back then. You were saying, what is it, 41 years ago or so since that, you know. But a woman who fell was how a lady was described if she ended up pregnant, for example. The woman who fell, the fallen woman. The way language has even changed over the time.
It was that idea of secrecy and shameful. Whereas now society has progressed so much, you don't look at people like that. You don't talk about people like that in the same way. Even that idea of their son coming out of a public house would be a disgrace.
Yes, I know.
We see young lads falling around the footpaths every Saturday night now, and you're just like, oh, they're having a bit of crack.
Yeah, and the comment, and again about women there, one of the comments was, a decent woman would never be seen in a public house, like, you know. And the poor woman then who spent her entire marriage, she wouldn't know what it was to go out at night.
And now that'd be the bare minimum. Like, in this day and age, you wouldn't dream of settling down, getting married, and then kind of having that thing of not being taken out, not going to the pub, not having these trips. So it's like a completely different world, and it's not that long ago.
It's not that long ago, but as I say, to even hear the language there of it is... I mean, we give out a lot about, you know, the current generation and the times we're living in, but by comparison... I think we're living in a better time, do you think?
I think young people now are educated and they're confident. They're confident in what they want. They understand consent. And maybe that's why we are seeing a decline in the marriage rates as well, tying back into Breda O'Brien's piece earlier. Because people have a plan and they learn so much and they become independent. They're not relying on anybody else to tell them what they need to do.
Well, here's the counter-argument to everything we've been saying. Why are we so delighted then to embrace nostalgia like we've been doing for the past few weeks and to talk about times gone by as if they were wonderful?
I think a lot of the young people didn't experience that.
Right.
So they've nothing to compare it to. They're adapted to life now. Whereas for people who might have lived through that time, they look back on the simpler times. Whereas for a lot of young people now, this is their version of the simple times.
Right, very good. Are you going to continue to wade your way through the archives, yeah?
Oh, I've heard whispers of a UFO in Carrick Shore, so...
Are you serious?
I'm going to be looking into that one now. I have a couple of clips from that, so brilliant.
All right, and we'll have that next week, will we?
Yeah.
Okay, looking forward to it. Leanne, thanks very much indeed for that. We're live from Nenagh Today. News and information is coming up.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today, live from Nenagh. Now, speaking of Nenagh, just before Christmas, €500,000 was allocated to Tipperary under the Town and Village Renewal Scheme for the former jail building in Nenagh, enabling the building to be transformed into a tourist attraction. At the January meeting of the municipal district, the district administrator, Rosemary Joyce, told the councillors that the funding was the single biggest allocation for the whole county. And Rosemary is with me in the studio. Good morning to you, Rosemary.
Morning, Fran.
And good to see you today. This is fantastic news for the town, isn't it?
It is fantastic. It's something we've been working through for a number of years, trying to seek funding and to get the most funding that we could under the Town Village Renewal. Is a great opportunity to bring what is a really historic heritage asset back into use.
Tell me about how you got the funding, because it's very, I didn't realise only one project from the county would be funded in this fashion. Is that it?
Under that particular category,
yes.
There are a number of different categories of funding, some small amounts for preliminary works, but on the top category, the maximum funding for which is 500,000, only one application can go forward from each county, and we were lucky enough to get the approval to be put forward in Tipperary for our proposal, which is for the 3-storey jail block located in the courthouse yard.
Why do you think this project was the one chosen?
Because we're shovel ready. We had planning permission in place. We had previously sought funding under the RRDF. At the time we were unsuccessful, but that contained a number of different elements, the jail block being one of those. But we had put in place the funding and the planning permission and consents so that we would be ready to go when we got the funding. And in addition to the 500,000, the council will put 55,000 of their own resources in in as match funding, so it'll give us a total budget of 555,000.
You were telling me off air that the jail block hasn't been open to the public since 1887.
1887. And in fact, what's probably not realised is that the jail as a jail was only in operation from 1842 to 1887. So the jails were originally built. There was the Governor's House, and then there were 7 jail blocks radiating out from that. That was originally built around the same time as the courthouse. And the reason it was done in Nenagh was so that Nenagh would be the capital of North Tipperary when you had the split of the county into 2 ridings. Tipperary was known as being a very lawless county, and the assizes were being held, the spring and summer assizes were held in Clonmel. So that was a long way to go for the landowners who sat on those assizes, and they had to stay there for several days because of the crimes. They were travelling over bad roads on horsebacks, and in the meantime they were worried about what their tenants might be up to back on their own property. So it was decided then to split Tipperary into 2 ridings, as they called them at that time, and Nenagh put forward a bid that they would provide the courthouse and the jail, so they got the nod over Thurles at the time.
Yeah, were there executions?
There were 17 executions. They were at the Gate Lodge, which is at the entrance into the Governor's House. 17 men were executed, including the famous story of the Cormac brothers. But there were others as well. Others too, some of whom may have been innocent. The jail was really used. It wasn't used you wouldn't get a sentence to stay there for a number of years. So it was kind of a holding area.
Yes.
So you'd be going to trial. You might be deported, you might be set free and be back in probably a week or 2 later in court again. Or, unfortunately, for 17 men, it meant they faced the gallows.
What else was it used for, though, after it being a jail?
Well, we used it for storage purposes for over a number of years. And the pigeons used it as well.
I can imagine. But there are still cells, for example.
It's still very much intact as it was. And in fact, on some of the walls you can see where the prisoners wrote. So our aim will be to keep that very much an authentic experience. We're not going to try to modernise it or anything like that. You can really get a sense of history when you go into that building.
Yes. Is there an atmosphere about it,
There is an atmosphere. And a senior person from Kilmainham Jail actually came down there and was highly impressed. Now, originally, when you had the 7 jail blocks, and as I said, there's only that one that's fully intact, there was a gantry which linked them to the Governor's House, so the prisoners could go in and attend mass or services inside in the Governor's House. It would be our long-term aim to try to restore that, so that you'd have a walkway going from the jail to the Governor's House. Won't be possible this time round, but we do have the old iron cell doors and the door that says door to the chapel, so it is really authentic. One of the difficulties about the building is we'll never be able to make it fully accessible. But what we do hope to do is there are some temporary partitions on the ground floor that we'd clear them and we'd have an experience on the ground floor.
All right.
So
do you mean from a disability point of view?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you can't exactly put a lift into a heritage building. It's no different to Bunratty or Nenagh Castle and many others. But we want to be able to share the experience with as many people as possible and give them the opportunity to come in and see what it was like there and tell the story of our history from that time.
Sometimes when we see these kind of works beginning, we're never quite sure when they're going to finish. You have a deadline on this.
Oh, yeah. 18 months from when we get the funding application is our time for delivery
you
of
must
that.
be finished.
We must. Now, if something goes really wrong and we need a short extension, but it does mean that those works will be done as quickly as possible. We do have the advantage that we've done previous works here, conservation works on the roof and that, to prevent water egress. So we have people that are specialised in those areas, and because it is, of course, a protected structure, we will require a conservation architect to oversee the works that are being done.
Very good. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. So tourism is what we're talking about here, and I guess it plays in very well into what's surrounding the jail, and and what you'd be promoting.
Yeah, this is part of the Historic and Cultural Quarter of Nenagh. So in addition to the 3-storey jail block, we have the Governor's House, which houses the genealogy and the Heritage Centre. We have the castle that's there since 1200. We have the tourist office. We have the former town hall, which is now an art centre. And we have the library. We have the old Rialto cinema. That whole area, within 5 minutes walk, you can see an awful lot of heritage buildings. And of course, we've added to that with the different attractions that are being developed around the area. So, for example, the Shane McGowan Trail is something that there's a lot of focus on at the moment. Shane left such a legacy, and so many people actually tuned in to his funeral here in Nenagh 2 years ago. We have provided 2 murals based on his life, and there is now a trail being developed. A lot of this is being done by his sister Siobhan and also by members of the local community. So they're coming together, and various different locations that Shane was associated with, we've put up QR codes so that links into a website where you can get further information on the links to Shane's life. Places like Berthacane, Skahana, Luska, Dromineer and Nenagh.
It's great. You have a map as well that's available to people, haven't you? And it's a very appealing looking piece.
Yeah, it's a fantastic brochure. Yeah. A lot of the designs is based on drawings that were done by Shane himself. And it has some unique photographs that were provided by his family and by his wife Victoria. But it gives a map of the different locations. That's available from Nenagh Tourist Office. And it's since it first went live, the map, we've had people in over 30 countries across the world looking for copies.
Wow.
We have over 1,000 copies gone out, and we will post them out free to anybody who's looking for them. And that then gives them the links. Then they can get onto the website, find out details of the trails. And the current focus, and in fact this morning, there's a dry run being done of the tour around. So a local bus company will provide a coach. You can hire the coach for a group, go around and have a guided tour of the different locations. You can stop at the QR codes and get the information there, or you can do a self-guided tour. And already people have been doing that, but we're trying to enhance the experience by providing more information. The QR codes will be a great way to stop at the Cross of Fanu that's mentioned in one of Shane's songs. We're putting in a stone seat there so that people can sit for a while, like was mentioned in the song. You can go to Philly Ryan's pub in Nenagh, you can go to the Abbey Court, you can go to the Yanks in Berthacane, which Shane looked on as the place where the Pogues first sang.
Isn't it great? And a pint or two had along the way as well.
Absolutely.
It sounds like an exciting time for Nenagh, Rosemary, because we, on this programme, the nature, I suppose, of this programme, we often talk about closures, we talk about difficulties that businesses are experiencing and all of that. But this is an exciting time, isn't it?
It is a really exciting time. Reality is that down through the years, you're always going to have closures. You'll have businesses for various reasons, particularly family businesses may close because there's nobody available to take them over. But what you get in Nenagh is a lot of resilience and a lot of hard-working people that work together, and that keeps the town active and alive, and you get an awful lot of very positive feedback on that. But a lot of it has to do with working together, and we're very, very lucky with our location in Nenagh, so near to the lake, so much going on. Take Balna at the moment. We've had the pedestrianisation of the bridge, but now we have the opportunities that are opening up for tourism in that area. And we have Dromineer. We have a new water-based facility for sports that's been close to completion down there. We have all the other different locations, Cherry Glass. There's too many of them to name them all.
Yeah.
But there's just something to offer. And look, personally, I love Nenagh.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic town with an awful lot to offer. And people are friendly. I'm always enthusiastic. You know that over the years. And I always like to sell the positive message.
Yeah.
Yes, there are challenges, and we have to meet those challenges. But we can't rest on our laurels. So we've got the funding for the jail. Our next thing, we need to do something with the Rialta Cinema. We will be looking for funding again.
What plans have you for that?
An enterprise,
because that's in that area.
It is in there. The plans are for an enterprise centre which will have a focus on the whole area, digital area. So AI, cybersecurity, data analytics, to have a base there which will allow for training and start-up of small and medium-sized enterprises. There's a facility there for 100 people to work in that building.
Wow.
But we've got to get the funding to get it done up
so
first.
It would be a sort of a hub building.
Exactly, but with a specific focus. So we're in talks with Enterprise Ireland around that whole area at the moment, and we would hope to submit a funding application in due course. But we'll also be looking to, again under the RRF for the whole historic and cultural quarter of the area. So we're trying to do as much as we can for Nenagh. And I must, of course, also mention the Centre of Excellence that will be developed at Martyrs Road as well.
All right, well, it's great to see you and great to hear such good news as well. Rosemary, thanks for coming into us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are live from lovely Nenagh today. We're going to take a break. We're back with more in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Mo Chara is an animal charity operating in Tipperary for the last decade. It now has 2 shops, one in Thurles and one in Cashel, to help fund the wonderful work that they do. Our reporter, Alison Highland, travelled up to the shop in Cashel recently to find out more.
Nikki, tell us about Mo Chara. How long has it been operating and what does it do?
Mo Chara was founded late 2010 by a group of like-minded people who saw that we'd all worked together previously in other rescues. So we saw a niche within Thurles. So we all came together, and it was officially, although we founded in 2010, it was officially launched in March 2011. So this year's our 15th birthday.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And what have you done then over that 15 years? I mean, what type of animal rescue is it?
It's predominantly companion animals, so dogs and cats. We did initially think we'd be able to do everything, but for horses and bigger farm animals, you need the space, you need the expertise. And also with wildlife, you need the expertise, you need to be licensed. So whilst we don't turn anything away, it's predominantly companion animals, dogs mainly, and we do have a small cattery. If we get anything else in, such as wildlife, we will go out on those rescues, but we will always contact a bespoke wildlife rescue or point people in the direction of horse rescue, etc., that sort of thing. So where have we come from? We've come from a tiny little rescue that was renting kennels back in 2010 to a tiny little rescue that now costs €250,000 to run with our own premises.
I can imagine in that 15 years you've seen a lot of very sad cases.
A lot, yeah. And they still come. Probably not as often.
Yeah, are we getting any better in that regard, do you think?
I'd like to think so, and then something happens and you think, do you know what? No. Last year, with the run-up to Christmas, was probably one of the worst years in a long time for people looking to surrender dogs. Don't know what the reason was, but it was awful. Like one day, I think we got 28 calls.
Wow.
Well, there was 15 telephone calls and the rest were emails of people looking to surrender dogs. And people aren't looking to surrender just one dog. It could be 2 or 3. Various reasons. The main one is they've lost their home and they need to move house. And obviously, their landlords won't let them take their animals.
My God, that's so true. And I imagine there are specific cases as well that have stayed with you, or certain animals that have stayed with you, are there?
There are, yeah. We like to try and home everything. So when we get really sad cases in, we had one recently, a little terrier that came out. So this is very recent now. He came to us just after Christmas. He was found in Tiptown. We called him Carl. He was a little old man, just matted, his fur matted down to his skin. He was deaf, and we knew he had cataracts. But it turned out he also had liver cancer. So we then reached out to somebody to see if, rather than just say, you know, we'll put him to sleep, we decided, look, he's still got some quality of life. Let's see if we can find somewhere rather than the rescue, because it is a kennel facility that will take him and give him 2 weeks, 2 months of a life to let him know what it is to be loved. And that's what we try and do. So there are some cases, obviously, where you have to make that decision there and then. But in real terms, we like to try and give them a little bit of life.
Yeah, poor old Carl. Tell us, because where we are this morning then, we're here in your shop in Cashel, the Mo Chara shop. You describe the shops yourselves as your lifeblood for the charity. Why so?
They are the shops. We opened up initially with a jumble sale in Thurles many moons ago, and then we moved on to opening, we actually call them outlets. We're very American here.
Yeah.
So we actually moved on to then opening up 6 days a week in Thurles. And from there we decided, as that took off and became busy, it was great and it was earning us some money, but then we decided we needed to branch out. We needed more money to run the rescue, so Cashel was the next venture, and I think it's been open now 7 years, 9 years, is it? 9 years. Time flies when you're having fun. I remember coming into the shop and it was like it was just bare. So myself and my husband, who since passed, would have come down and we would have got the shop up and running, and then we relied on volunteers, and it's really difficult. Volunteering is a topic we could talk about forever. It seems to be dying out.
Really?
It does, yeah. So the only way really for us to run the two outlets would be to employ somebody, but the girls are all on a part-time basis and they're all on minimum wage as well, and then the rest is done by volunteers. So what I'll say to anybody is, if you want to give a little bit of something back to whatever charity, think about volunteering. You know, it is dying out, really is. We struggle to get volunteers.
And with the donations then, I mean, what do you take in?
Here, well, both the shops, we take in anything that we can resell. Clothing, books, DVDs, CDs, bric-a-brac, jewellery, unwanted gifts, anything that's in good condition that we can resell. Now, we do some recycling here as well, but as you can see, it's quite limited here in Cashel. It's quite a small shop. Thurles does a little bit more clothing recycling. The only thing we don't really take are large electrical items, and that's purely for insurance purposes. So we're very fortunate in Thurles. We have a qualified electrician who volunteers his time once a week to come in, and he'll pat test little things for us. So we're very fortunate that way. But again, we don't take anything that you need to leave plugged in, like kettles or microwaves or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because of the insurance simply. Yeah. And the other thing that we don't take as well, and it's really sad that we can't take them, but you know, car seats, baby car seats. Yeah, we're not allowed to take those anymore either. There was a case there recently in the UK where there was an accident. Somebody had bought a car seat from a charity shop. There was an accident and it was deemed that the child's seat was faulty, and they sued the charity.
My goodness. Tell me then as well, in terms of the charity and keeping it going, can I ask you about the donations actually first of all, because in other charity shops that we've spoken to who take in donations, they often feel it's abused a little bit as well, that you'll get in dirty stuff or stuff that people just really want to throw out. In your experience, is there any abuse of that donation?
There is, yeah. All the time. And it is quite sad, you know, like people do dump the rubbish, but then there's the other side of it as well, where you might think something's really good quality, and I look at it and I go, no, we can't sell that. So, you know, it's not always intentional. A lot of time it is. I mean, I won't say it on the radio, but we've opened bags with some horrific things in.
I spoke to a charity once, they were getting used nappies, even dirty nappies. Would that be your experience as well?
Dirty nappies, dirty ladies, sanitary wear, dirty knickers. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Clothing that's been worn and never washed, and just recently in Thurles there we had this bag of clothing donated, and I opened it up and the smell. The ironic thing is the clothing was all really good stuff.
Yeah.
But the smell of it was as if somebody had worn it and then just put it in a bag.
Oh no.
Yeah. And toys are another thing. When people give you broken toys and you ask them if it's all there, and they say yes, and then when you look at it, now we don't want to be. It sounds like we're being really picky, but there's a cost involved then of disposal.
That's the thing. Yeah, because that's an added cost on you. Then
it is. Yeah. So would you say to anybody, if you are thinking of donating, please be a little bit more vigilant. Yeah. We get some amazing stuff, but then we do get some rubbish as well.
I can imagine. And to speak to one of the staff then as well. Bridget, how are you? Bridget, what's your full name?
My name is Bridget Mulhall.
Bridget, how long are you here?
9 years this April.
Well done. Mm-hmm. And what led you getting involved?
I was in my daughter's house one day. I wasn't working at the time. And Nikki rang my daughter and she was looking for a manager for a shop. So I heard her on the phone. So she got off the phone. I said to her, why didn't you tell her I do it? Right? And she rang Nikki back, and Nikki said, that's great, because I had my own boutique and I had my own pub, and so I knew the trade. So Nikki, she rang back, she said, that's fine, she'll do it, so I'm here since.
Well done. How rewarding.
And Nikki's a great boss, and Gabrielle, they're absolutely, you can talk to them, and they're absolutely excellent to work for, but they like everything to be right.
That's all right too.
Yeah.
There's a big team here, isn't there?
There is,
How many
actually.
are here?
So we have Anne, she works 3 days a week. And we have Terry, she might come in 1 or 2. And we have Nuala, and she's from Tiptown. She's here a long time. She was here over 5 years. She's voluntary.
Are they all volunteers?
No, Anne isn't. And we have, we've Connor started with Toos, and we have another Toos worker coming, and we have Mandy here.
How rewarding is it for you then to work here?
Oh, it's brilliant. We, in Cashel, it's lovely. The customers are lovely. We really have a lovely time here. And they come in for the chat. They love it as well.
Yeah.
They're getting a bargain in the clothes, and they love the whole atmosphere of it.
Yeah, you're really well located here as well, right in the centre of Cashel, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
The window displays as well, they're a big kind of draw, I suppose, for people. I know that's something you put a lot of work into, isn't it?
They are, Alison, and I love doing the windows. Yeah. It takes a lot of time, but I really love doing them. People have come and taken photographs and everything. Amazed with the windows. It's my thing, I like it.
So what advice would you have? Nikki, I'll ask you in a minute about how people should donate, maybe not just stuff, but also money as well to the charity. But anyone, Nikki was telling about the need to volunteer, and maybe that's something that's dying off a little bit. What would you say to people who are listening to that, saying maybe I should get involved?
Absolutely. An hour, 2 hours, any day, even 1 day a week, really helps, makes a big difference, because the shop is busy and we do get a lot of donations in. And as Nikki said, some of them are bad, some of them are excellent. We've got excellent stuff in.
Yeah.
But, it'd be lovely if we could get volunteers. And they don't have to give a full day, half a day. Just an hour or two would be good.
And don't forget the crack you have doing it as well.
Oh, we have great crack in here. Then when Nikki comes, we're all running. Here's Nikki.
Nikki, then just for listeners then, for anyone who does want to donate, tell us, we need to emphasise that it needs to be good quality stuff, doesn't it? But what would you take?
Clean, well... When we say good quality, just as long as it's clean, washed and clean, please don't bring in bags of unwashed ladies' undergarments or unwashed clothing. Like the girls, don't forget, people have to sort through this. They have to look at it. They have to sort through it. So as long as the clothing is clean and in a resellable condition. Yeah. Now, we have started again taking recycling, because at one stage there, the company that we were using weren't paying us for the recycling, but now they've started paying us again. And as long as, if you bring a bag in and it is for recycling, if you could put on it what's in it, because we have to separate towels and bedding, and the fact that it is recycling, because then it saves the girls actually going through it.
Yeah,
If they want to bring in a bag of recycling, as long as it's clean and it's separated into like household, which would be towels and sheets and bedding, shoes need to be separated, and then clothing in a separate bag. So, we take virtually anything, as I said to you, apart from the big electrical stuff.
Yeah, and it all, of course, goes to a good cause. You've great plans for it. Tell us about the kennel transformation you've planned.
Yeah, we've currently, it's been going on since last year. We've currently got Operation Kennel Transformation underway. Pardon the pun on the words, the use of the words there. Okay. But at Mo Chara, we started with nothing. And I'm really proud of what we've built, and so is everybody else. So every year we believe in doing a little bit more to the rescue. Now, there's obviously, it's dogs you're dealing with up there, so there's always ongoing repair work. But the kennel block itself is a big long unit of 19 kennels, and that was bought and set up when we had nothing. So it's looking tired. The building itself is a wooden shed. Now, the outside of it is perfect, but if we don't do something to preserve it from the inside, it will rot from the inside out. So we'd planned to raise 35,000. And we'd hit 20,000 of that. Unfortunately, there'd been one or two little issues up at the rescue, and then we decided that before we finished the operation, we've done phase one of it, by the way, so we've done all the electrics are all done. But then we've come up with a plan. We need to put in an outside office. We've had a bit of a reshuffle up at the rescue to give people more responsibility and to make the paperwork, because there's a mountain of paperwork involved, so to make it lighter on people like me. So we're putting in, the next phase will be to put in an outside office, and then we'll probably add an extra 10 grand to the Operation Kennel Transformation and finish the kennels.
Yeah. So anyone who's looking to donate to that fund, then, how can they do that?
They can do that either through PayPal, or we do have, you can click on the link on Facebook. You can drop money into the shops if they want to drop, or if they want to drop it cash into the shops, purely with Operation Kennel Transformation written on it. Or if they wanted to contact me on the rescue number 087 2577 182, I can give them the IBAN code for the bank, and they can do a direct bank transfer. So there's several ways.
And it means a lot to you, doesn't it? I mean, what this could do.
It does. Like, you'll have to come up to the rescue and do something from the rescue. And obviously not on a day like today, but when the weather's a little bit better. And I am so proud of what we've built up there. And everybody that comes, on a nice day, you wouldn't think we could have 40 or 50 dogs up there. We like to call it a happy place. I know it's a bit cliche, but people will come in and they go, "Oh, how many dogs have you got?" And we'll say, "There's probably, whatever, there's 45 up there." And you wouldn't think there was one, and that tells me that the dogs are happy. Absolutely. So, yes, I am really proud of it. The guys up there are amazing. They keep it really well. So, yeah, it's just, and our doors are always open. We do operate on an appointment basis, but we're happy to see anybody. And if anybody wants to donate and wants to come and see where their money is going before they donate, and corporate donations are a massive thing. We haven't had many, but if there's any company out there that, that have a little bit of money to spare and want to donate it towards a good cause, please come along, get in touch with me, come along and see what we're doing, and you'll see where your money's going. And anybody like that, we will put a little plaque up on the kennels. So yeah, it's always a work in progress, and the girls always, my motto is, like, I like to forward plan, and the girls always say Nikki loves a project. So there's always a project ongoing at Mo Chara, always.
Bridget, of course, none of this would be possible without the great work of you and all the volunteers here as well. But there was one you wanted to single out, was there?
I did. It was Bernie. She's here before I was here, so she's here over 9 years. So she came here before me, and she comes from 2 Mile Boroughs.
Wow.
And she comes every Friday.
Without people like Bridget and the girls in the Cllr outlet, none of this would be possible. Mo Chara wouldn't even be possible. We'd be struggling for money. So a huge thank you to those girls, the ones that are paid and the ones that aren't paid. Without them, we wouldn't have Mo Chara Animal Rescue. They enable us to keep going.
And that was Ellie's trip to the Mo Chara shop in Cashel. And a very fine place. I often drop in there myself. And it's just Hogan Square there in Cashel, near the Paddy Powers there at the back of Sean O'Dear's pharmacy. If you want to drop on by, you'll be made fierce welcome all together. We'll take a break. Back with more in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp Today on 1-800-938-007.
Welcome back to Tipp Today, broadcasting from Nenagh today. Now, yesterday, Leanne discussed the controversial board games that are making headlines this week. Troubles, Shadow War in Northern Ireland, 1964 to 98, is a multiplayer card game highlighting key events like the Sunningdale Agreement and the hunger strikes. It's not yet finished or available, and it could take some years to develop. Meanwhile, a crowd-funded game about the Irish famine, the Great Hunger, has raised over €12,000. It lets players role-play as tenant farmers trying to survive the famine by growing families and fleeing disease. Now, Dave, regular contributor to the show, is a board game lover, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Dave.
Good afternoon. And good morning, whichever one that is.
It depends on what part of the world you're in, Dave. Would you say you're a board game lover? Tell me about that first of all. I mean, is that something that's important to you? Board games?
Yeah, my only problem with board games is I have too many and not enough time to play them. No, they are. Yeah, I do. I've all different types of board games: strategy games, team building games. I've one based off George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which is just savage crack. But it's great. They're great. They get the brain going. They get you thinking. It doesn't involve technology. You could switch off. Like I could, if I had the time, I would happily play board games all day long with kids.
Would you? Isn't that fantastic? I would have thought, you see, board games to me would be the traditional ones of, Monopoly or, I don't know, everything as far back as Snakes and Ladders and the like of it. But there's a whole new breed of board game now, I gather.
Oh, yeah, come here. I mean, you have like TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games. I mean, like the likes of like Dungeons and Dragons. I have games that are based off of video games that I love. I have other games that are fantasy games, science fiction games, a couple of horror games, and they can be really, really immersive as well. There's loads of card games. I mean, Cards Against Humanity is probably the best card game on the face of the planet. Especially if you're having a few beers with your friends.
I can imagine, indeed. But does it surprise you to know that when Leanne told us about this yesterday, there was an outpouring of people who are really annoyed at the notion that you could turn something like The Troubles or The Great Hunger into a board game for entertainment?
Well, okay, The Troubles one, that's a stupid idea. There's no defending that one. But the thing is, though, the guy who created the board game, he gave a radio interview the other day, and I said I'd listen to it, for the crack.
Yeah.
Get his perspective. And listen, I was one of those people. I was ready to go home last night, put on my Aaron jumper and sharpen my pitchfork as Michael Collins and Sinead O'Connor were playing in the background, But
steady, Dave, steady, steady on.
I know, yeah, I'm riding those stereotypes hard. No, but to be fair to the guy, there's a couple of things. First of all, we hear, one of them Yanks is going on about on Gorta Moor, so immediately the heckles get up,
Yeah.
But this guy is of direct Irish descendancy. His grandparents are originally from Leitrim, and he has come back to Ireland. He's not like the guy who made that Wild Mountain Thyme abomination. He seemed like a fella who just got off from Dublin Airport for half an hour and hopped back on the plane.
Yeah.
And look, you had people coming on and they were challenging him and they were mentioning stuff about the famine and very niche things that if you stopped your average Joe Soap on the side of the road and asked them questions about it, they wouldn't be able to tell you. Very much knew his history behind it. And he said straight out, listen, this is not for the Irish market. He said this is for the American market because he said he was just saddened by how many Americans to this day think, oh, yeah, Irish potato famine. Irish people were so stupid and backwards, the potatoes died and they didn't think they could eat anything else. So for him, it's he didn't even call it a board game. He called it a tabletop simulation kind of a thing, And there are loads of them out there. There are loads of board games out there.
And Dave, Did he speak about the aspect of the family, about the culpability of the Brits in this, for example? Did he talk about that?
No, he did. There was one lady come on, and the knives were out from the very start. And she was like, well, there was other food here. And he's like, no. He said there's an element in the game where it talks about how there was beef and there was pork, but they were used to pay your rent and, and all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't one of these stupid paddies had no potatoes, so they died. Right. It wasn't that at all. I personally, I think he was very respectful towards the history of the famine, and he said it was like, and there was there was one lady to come on, and no offense to her, he says before he insults her. You could tell by the way she spoke, and she's, well, my family were never touched by the famine, and one does not, come at history this way, and you should go see a lecture, and you're like, yeah, we definitely know all we need to know about your genealogy, but like to talk about go to a lecture, or go to this, or go to that. There's a lot of people who are interested in history. If they went to a lecture, they'd fall asleep. And look, don't get me wrong, there are amazing historians out there and lecturers out there, but there are a lot of people out there who are like, and in this time in 18, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You tend to trail off. Board games can be incredibly immersive. And
can they be? I mean, can they educate you though? That's the thing. I mean, is it educational to play board games around something like the famine or the Troubles?
Look, it can be. No. There's nothing educational about the ones I play. They're about as far removed from reality as possible, which is why I play board games.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
want to forget my life.
You don't play board games to educate yourself, then, is basically the thing.
No. Okay. I'm a bit of a nerd anyway. I do all that stuff my other time.
Yeah.
Well, like, they can be. See, I think, like, the thing about it is, it's how you approach it, And from how the guy spoke about it, and like, every time someone brought up a fact, he was like, oh yeah, there's this, and there's also this thing, and there's also this thing. So he very much did his research. It wasn't the usual, like, American yuppie comes to Ireland and is like, oh my God, they have electricity here. So it was none of that. And I think, I personally, from how he spoke about it, he was very respectful of it. And he said, he goes, I want to educate people on my side of the world of how tough the famine was. And like, here's the thing as well, like, I'm not going to say we get very precious when it comes to our history, but there's a slight bit of hypocrisy when we're looking to take Americans' money. We're quite happy to roll out the diddly eye and the old big horrors. But then when someone who has genuine connections to Ireland is trying to promote our history, we start getting all up in a huff about it.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'd question about it is how it could be entertaining. I mean, if you go back to the field in John B. Keane and the bull describing, victims of the famine with the grass juice running down their chins and all of that kind of thing. I mean, I'm just wondering, how could that be entertaining with people dying by the side of the road?
The thing is, like, he never said it was entertaining. Like, he said, like, this is a tabletop simulation in the same way you have plenty of board games. The way he called it was like cardboard history, and like there are plenty of board games out there that, like, are simulations of, like, say, the Battle of the Somme and World War II stuff. They're not meant to be entertained. He even said there's a card in it. When you flip over the card, you start to play it English. And he said it's not nice, So it's less about yay, we didn't die, or boo, everyone's dead. It's almost like he's trying to help you form a bit of an emotional connection to the game that you're playing. You're becoming immersed in this, we'll say, simulation.
Right.
And
now, where I'm making the mistake, Dave, is I'm comparing this to something like Monopoly or something, and you're saying to me this is a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, this is kind of you're forming kind of you're learning about history, and then because you're learning about the terrible things that happened during that time, you're growing a level of empathy for the people who lived back then. And you then you kind of have a bit more reverence for what these people went through and the suffering and, like how hard it was to make it to America and places like that.
Tell me about some of the other board games you play. I was just trying to read up on some of them, and it seems to me that they're trying to compete with the video games now at this point. Is that fair comment?
But, I think, like, the thing is, like, board games have always been there. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons has existed since the 70s or 80s, so they've always been there, and I've always kind of had a passing interest. But I think, when COVID came along and everybody was stuck in their homes, I think board games saw a massive resurgence, you know, because you have tabletop games where, like, there's one called Warhammer 40,000. It's set in the far future, you know, space marines, aliens, orcs, blah, 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 blah. Where you have the miniatures. And then there's a whole subculture of people who play the game or they just collect the miniatures and paint them. You know, like I tend to hoard board games. And, like, I enjoy video games myself. But at the same time, I love playing board games at the same time because you can really get wrapped up in it. Like, we're trying to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And the first time we played for 7 straight hours and we didn't even realize. And we became really, really immersed in this. You know, and there's board games out there for everybody. Like I said before, Cards Against Humanity is, if you have 4 or 5 people, you're sitting around doing nothing, you're having a couple of beers, Cards Against Humanity is the best one ever.
But what is that? Is that based on throwing? Is that based on throwing a dice, or is it a card-based game? What is it? Right. I'm trying to explain Cards Against Humanity on daytime radio. Right. So it's basically, it's a great game for Irish people. Do you remember the way Irish people have, like, as a people, we all have this kind of very dark sense of humour? Yes.
So Cards Against Humanity is like, here's a question card, and then the answer cards, you basically have to come up with the most horrendous answer you can come up with. And someone, like, I can't even give you an example over radio.
Right, okay.
You know, and, like, to someone who's never played it, they'll probably think, Jesus Christ, that's awful. You shouldn't be making up those games. But I'm not joking. There are times that got us through COVID, and there are times I've quite literally fallen off the seat laughing. And what I've noticed is women tend to play better than men, but women with children seem to be the best, because I think, you know, women are better at, like, you know, bottling up all their anger, you know, so it's a great vehicle for them.
That's a very big statement, Dave.
Well, look, let's be honest. Like, there's a particular vintage of Irish ladies, you know, like, who from way, way back in the day grew up to be incredibly bitter women because of the lives that they had to leave, and you know, they were left with the kids while the fella was out drinking all the time or whatever.
Okay,
so women are a lot better at bottling that stuff up than men are, you know. So it's definitely a great avenue for them. But there's loads of simple card games. Like, there's a great one called Super Fights that usually ends in a row every time you try to play it, and it's very simple. You've one card is a character, and then another card is an attribute card. So you could have, like, Martha Stewart on a Segway with an M16 versus Godzilla with an invisibility cloak and an impenetrable shield. And then each person gets 60 seconds to make the argument of why their character would win in a fight against the other character. Do you know?
Yeah,
like,
I'm wondering if I'm going to pick this up.
Great crack.
I'm wondering if I'm going to pick this up on the way home and see what happens. It's fascinating.
Honestly, Fran, I'm telling you right now, lad, if you have a family gathering coming up anytime soon, get Cards Against Humanity. I guarantee if there's anyone there who doesn't laugh, they have no sense of humour, you should just cut them out of your life altogether.
You don't know my family, Dave. All right, Dave, thanks very much for that. Fascinating. Thank you. Look after yourself. Bye-bye.
Pleasure as always.
Bye-bye. That's the wonderful Dave there, who is trying to explain to us about board games. You see, it just goes to show you. I think it's an age thing, really. My idea of a board game, as I say, was something like drafts or snakes and ladders or Monopoly or something like that. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks to Leanne, who produced. Ali looks after us with content. Stephen has the Time Tunnel on the Lunchtime Show, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. So from Nenagh, bye-bye now.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.